Hello and welcome. You are watching News9 Live. I'm Krishnakumar. On this show, we are talking about Ratan Tata, the leader, the legend, and the legacy that he has left behind. Padma Vibhushan awardee and chairman emeritus of Tata, Ratan Tata, passed away at Breach Candy Hospital in Mumbai on Wednesday, the 9th of October's night. The 86-year-old iconic industrialist was in a critical condition and was under intensive care at the hospital. He was admitted late Sunday night between 12:30 and 1 a.m. after experiencing low blood pressure and was treated in the ICU. Ratan Tata's tenure as the chairman of Tata Sons from 1991 to 2012 transformed the Tata Group into a globalized, diversified conglomerate from an Indian legacy house, with its market capitalization ballooning 17 times. The group, with its listed entities, combined market capitalization at 30 lakh crore rupees, saw a dramatic growth with his strategic decisions and well-timed acquisitions. To understand his legacy better, we have a very special guest now joining us on the broadcast. We have Mr. S. Ramadorai, former CEO and Managing Director of Tata Consultancy Services, or TCS, and currently Chairman of Mission Karmayogi Bharat, joining us. Thank you, Mr. Ramadorai. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here for this. I'm going to begin by asking you, when you hear of Mr. Ratan Tata's passing, what are the first thoughts that cross your mind?
First of all, we are very sad we lost a person of impeccable integrity and a value systems which all of us cherish, having been a part of this group for more than 50 plus years. The first thought that comes to my mind are, we need to carry this legacy forward. We need to make sure the professionals of the group fully understand the impact, implications, and the larger purpose of being in business with the philanthropy built into it. Touching the common man, touching the citizens of this country, and touching every part of the globe is our charter, and that's what we'll be focusing on. That's what comes to my mind when I think of this man.
Mr. Ramadorai, you are one of the key people on Mr. Ratan Tata's team, building the crown jewel of the Tata Group, which is Tata Consultancy Services. Talk to us, in this long journey that you've had with him, what are the marquee moments that you can recollect between you and Mr. Ratan Tata and his time at the Tata Group?
I think a couple of things. The leadership of TCS has been minimal in the sense that we have had as CEOs, there is only 4 or 5 in the overall history of TCS, which is more than 50 years. Second is, Ratan Tata was part of the Tata Sons board. Before listing, they were the overseeing part of the TCS. But more importantly, he became the chairman of the group and chairman of TCS in 1996 before we got listed. I think from that, the journey of listing in the year 2004 was an enormous amount of growth, enormous amount of focus, and enormous amount of revenue with profit, and more importantly, the money well spent and the cash we generated for the group as well as for the philanthropic activities of the group. I think it's a journey of excellence where if today you measure TCS or the Tata Group, the kind of impact we have created silently, but more importantly with the action on the ground, and then taking the credit from the voice of the people, voice of the customers. That's what we cherish, and that's what we want to carry forward.
All right. You've spent a lot of time with Mr. Ratan Tata, working with him. Tell us, what were some of those key conversations, if you can recollect, that you had with Mr. Ratan Tata that sort of shaped your journey with him?
I think traveling together and discussing the technology implications for global good. We used to travel a lot as chairman and the CEO. We traveled to different parts of the world, including to China, including to Latin America, which are new territories for the group and for TCS, where we set the beachhead. I think we were also on a journey in New York where we had a lot of clients and then went together. Also, the roadshow which we did before the IPO was again a very memorable moment where he saw the person in action, and he was with me right through and encouraged us to speak what we stood for, what were the kind of impact we were creating to the customers, and what kind of incremental innovation and continuous innovation were a way of life. He encouraged us to think big, think tall, and make sure that we lived our values by saying that believe in your promises, promise what you can deliver, and do not promise something which you cannot deliver. Some of the national projects of importance were very critical for an organization. It stood the test of time. The passport project, as an example, is something that comes to my mind. He encouraged us a lot. He wanted to make sure that we build the same value systems. He challenged us, but he was part of the challenge in the journey. You'd go to him with any query, any problem, but he was a man who would listen, and more importantly, you learned a lot by his gestures, his mannerisms, his interactions, etc., etc. That's what I would describe, and that's what the journey of excellence has been for me personally and for the group as a whole.
All right, one of the most important legacies that Mr. Ratan Tata leaves behind is the globalization of the Tata Group. Be it building TCS into one of the global software giants, or going out there and acquiring everything from Tetley Tea to Jaguar Land Rover. Tell us, how did he go about achieving this globalization of one of India's biggest conglomerates?
I think globalization was always on the cards for every part of the group, every single company in the group. TCS happened early because the market was outside the country and not the domestic market. So we had to look outward, namely across the borders. So whether we went to the US, whether we went to Europe, whether we went to the UK, whether we went to Australia, whether we went to New Zealand, Japan, etc., and then Latin America, was matters of detail. But I think when the other group companies, for example, the Tata Motors or the Tata Steel or the Tata Chemicals or the tea company acquiring and then scaling it up with the processes, systems, governance, and fairness to employees was the way those journeys took place. To me, it's a combination of globalization through multiple avenues, and we were fearless to take those responsibilities. And we understood the mandate we carry and the ability to execute that, ability to live the values which never was sacrificed or compromised under any circumstances. To me, TCS IPO was one such example, TCS globalization was another example, and mostly by organic growth rather than by acquisitions. Whereas the other companies did a lot of acquisitions and integrated them. So I think we have learned everything. And since we were on the board of some of the other companies which are also growing by acquisitions, we learned a lot. And that was the cross-sector learnings as well as cross-sector contributions as either board members or functioning CEOs.
Now, as far as Ratan Tata is concerned, there is always that talk of, the great ambition with which he powered the Tata Group and the remarkable achievements that came his way. But what is also important is that all of that was done with extremely high ethical standards. Mr. Ratan Tata is somebody who stood for high ethical standards, even as big business ambition was there all along the way. Talk to us. Was that something that was important to his team members? That's something he imparted, and how did the team also sort of respond to that?
Yes, for us, joining the Tata Group was because not only excellence, not only ability to do what you want, but more importantly, the governance and the value systems had to be right. The intolerance of any mishap or any misbehavior was never accepted. And we had to live the values by demonstrating so that everybody around the value chain knew what the do's and don'ts were very clearly. These were circulated through the Tata Business Excellence model, where every company that subscribed to the Tata Business Excellence model were evaluated on the basis of these criteria of its governance, living the values, in addition to the leadership, marketing, sales, businesses, financials, etc. were looked at. So to me, it is excellence through a process, through a value system, through involvement, through external people. So we are all subject to a scrutiny, both personally as well as professionally as a corporation. And this stood the test of time. It will carry across, and that's what we remember: the man, the group, and the people who were there before him, or the people who are going to be after us, so that they practice these without fear, favor, or any other compromises.
All right, I'm going to take a bit of a departure from all the questions about business and the group and the work that Mr. Ratan Tata did to talk about something more personal. You're somebody who spent so much time with him. You were talking about how you spent so much time traveling with Mr. Ratan Tata. Everything from business meetings to travel. You spent so much time, and that's why I'm asking you this question. I'm curious to know, what did you talk about apart from business and work with Mr. Ratan Tata? What were those conversations about? No, what were you talking about when you're not talking about the work?
We talked about books. We talked about magazines like the New Yorker. We used to have him at home, and then over dinner or whatever it is, we used to talk about the children. We used to have our son meet with him very regularly whenever he was in India. I think those are the moments where we said that we have no business, no TCS, no Tata Group, but what are our common interests? And then that was the topic. We had some memorable moments like we went to South Africa, or we went to Latin America, or we went to Europe, like I said, or went to the US. But we went to some Broadway shows together in New York as an example, or we participated in some of these events which was beyond the corporate. So to us, the man you need to know by being with him, by observing him, by he being a part of you, and he encouraging you not in the business, but in the commonality of interest, which was very important. Sometimes we talk about his love for animals, love for dogs, and since we also had a dog at that time, we used to talk about the breed, about what the nuances where dog breeding were, and how we could take care of them as a human being. I think the other one where we had a commonality of purpose was in healthcare and the cancer hospitals, or when we set up a children's hospital, exclusive children's hospital in Mumbai called SRCC, which I anchored and raised the money for it. He was one of those who supported through TCS. But we were sorry he could not visit because of his ill health, etc. But this hospital is one of the landmarks of the country where we carried forward, and we used to discuss about it. To me, it's a very, very diverse set of interests and diverse set of chats, including with my wife or with my son, and that was the important moment. We also used to talk about food sometimes and what preferences we had for food. So if you see, it is a very, very cross-section where we integrated, and so it became more like friends rather than a boss or employee or employer relationship. That's what we cherish, and that's what we have propagated, and that's the reason for the group's growth and individual companies' growth. Empowerment is the name of the game.
Right, so the relationship was not a typical boss and subordinate. He was a friend who guided you and guided the team, in fact, not just you. Great to know that. So in that sense, I want to understand some of the lessons that both you and people who worked for him got in leadership from Ratan Tata. And I'm asking this question simply because, he is somebody who's not just somebody who's achieved great things in business, but also set standards for how to conduct business, how to run a team, how to be a leader. So if I were, and you yourself are a big leader in your own right, so I want to understand, what are the lessons in leadership from Mr. Ratan Tata?
All of us must dream big. All the entrepreneurs must dream big. All of us encourage for the entrepreneurs to dream really big. You're not chasing money, but you're chasing an idea. You propagate an idea which is for common good, which means sustainability, climate change has to be integrated into your business. This we used to talk all the time to make sure that the new set of entrepreneurs, the startups, or the second one, third one, venture, whatever they are doing, the sustainability has to be integrated in the value systems and the business of the organization. So both the business for commercial impact as well as for common good has to be together, and we must practice that absolutely. Money is an outcome, and money is not the only end game. Even if you touch 1 million people, that's a big achievement. 1 million people, and then the impact which you create, whether it's in education, whether it's in nutrition, whether it's in health, whether it is in carbon footprint, all of these becomes a big deal. So I think both of us have a common enablement of skills in this country, building the next level of next generation of skills through a platform-based approach. We invested in different companies, different startups, and in our own pathways. but at least the lessons were common to say that the youth have to think big, have to implement, and then claim the credit for the financial reward and the market rewards. There's no harm in failing, in short. If you tried an idea and it took its own turn and you are not able to implement it or carry it forward, so you can try always a new one. And those were the important lessons. And that's important lessons for the youth of this country. And that's what is playing out, and that's what we are seeing in the startup ecosystem of this journey in this country.
You know, one part of Mr. Ratan Tata's history that I want to touch upon as we speak is that the time when he chose to come back at the helm of affairs of the Tata Group after retirement, after appointing Cyrus Mistry, and then changing his mind and bringing himself back. Tell us, it must have not been the easiest of time, quite a tumultuous time, so to speak. What was it like for Mr. Ratan Tata? When you were talking to him at that time, what prompted him to come back? Somebody who was confident that he is done with what he needs to do and he's going to hand over the reins to somebody, handpicked somebody, and then eventually he had to come back. Tell us, what was going on with him at that point in time?
I think when a person believes in the group, and the person has seen a nurturing of a child in a way, you're not going to say that I will not come back, I will not look back, or I will not put my hands where it is required. And you are giving the blessings in terms of being a part of that journey, and you are not tinkering or you are not becoming a nuisance. I think because we respect the man for what he stood for, and he wanted to achieve as the end game or the journey of excellence that will continue, we welcome the person rather than finding that is he going to be a nuisance or he's just overseeing somebody. I think that's the way we all professionals should look at, to say that if I give a professional advice even after retirement, it's in the goodness of that company, in the best interest of that company, to make sure that they listen to it if they want to. And if they don't want those ideas, that's also acceptable. In some cases, you become part of that. In cases, you become an advisor from outside, or in some cases, you just give the inputs wherever it is needed. People do seek those inputs, and we need to be sensitive to that because of the overall experience, which is not small.
Right, Mr. Ramadorai, I have to ask you now, about Mr. Ratan Tata's life post his retirement. He's not somebody who just reshaped India's business landscape, but he's also somebody who reshaped India's startup landscape. The levels of startups and entrepreneurship that's booming in the country right now. Mr. Ratan Tata has played a very crucial role, and he played that crucial role after hanging up his boots at the Tata Group. Tell us, what was it like watching him make those crucial startup investments and lay the seeds for India's startup landscape?
I think when you look at the future of this country, it is the small entrepreneurs who are going to make a difference. It's not the large corporations which will continue to keep on growing. It's the small entrepreneurs, the innovation that is happening from the grassroots level to the district level, panchayat level, state level, city level, everywhere that's happening. If you want to be participating and then creating the global impact or the bigness of creation, then you need to invest in those so long as your passion for that stays the same. We as senior citizens, we as adults have to accept that and be a part of that. Otherwise, we will be left behind. Like we always say, learning is lifelong and learning is not a once degree and then you forget about learning. The models have changed, the opportunities have increased, the digitalization has enabled most of these. And that's what he was practicing as much as all of us do. So I think this is the world we are living in. This is where the youth are creating the next 100 years or whatever. So I think we should be fortunate to say that we could be a part of the journey in whatever measure, whatever scale. But at the end of the day, you try, dare to learn and keep learning and keep applying and creating the impact, whether it's for social good or commercial good. That's the way we look at it. That's the way he looked at it as well.
All right, Mr. Ramadorai, we will leave it at that. Mr. S. Ramadorai, former CEO of TCS, taking time out to join with us. Thank you so much for being with us here on this broadcast on News9 Live. Right, time now to also listen to some of the tributes that have been pouring in for Mr. Ratan Tata. Let's listen in.
देश के लिए बहुत बड़ा नुकसान है, not just for corporate India, but for the country as a whole. I think the impact of his work is quite unparalleled. and I think we should remember him through the richness of his work. हम कई बार मिलते थे सालों पहले और हमें बहुत ज़्यादा सोबर थे, फ्रूगल थे और देश के हित में सोचते थे.
He was really a remarkable person, and I think if you look at the outpouring today of feeling, of affection, of respect, of regard, I mean, I can't remember anybody, honestly, in the world of industry who's evoked this kind of emotion among people across a very, very wide cross-section. I mean, it is truly seen as a national loss. And when you look, I think people will realize with the passage of time, today we are talking about India rising, of India having a bigger global footprint. Ratan Tata pioneered that. I mean, he was a man ahead of his times. He took the Tata Group abroad in a way. I mean, today if there's a sort of a global, there's a global recognition of Indian industry. I think Ratan Tata deserves that credit.
We have never seen Jamshedji Tata, Dorab Tata. People who knew about or written about them, they were very simple men of integrity. But in my life, I met him, this man of integrity, simplicity, care for others, compassionate, always care for others. I used to meet him even in Indian Institute of Science, popularly known as the Tata Institute. Irrespective of time, place, he always enthusiastic about new things and a very warm. I really miss him. I don't think in my experience, I met anyone like him. And it's hard to get someone like him. May I only pray, may his soul rest in peace. He was a legend. There was an era. It was the end of an era for me. Particularly, I feel this is my personal loss. I consider that way. I grew up with Tata company. I learned from them. I kept him as like a JRD as a role model, and Ratan Tata ji as a model, a role model in life. I feel now vacuum in my personal life.
लगता था कि रतन टाटा पूरे जीवन भर, हमारे जीवन भर, आने वाले जीवन में हमेशा रहेंगे, क्योंकि कुछ लोग आप उनको हमेशा मिलते नहीं हैं, बट उनका एहसास देश के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में नज़र आता है, देश के चैरिटी इंस्टीट्यूशन में नज़र आता है, देश के आबो हवा में नज़र आता है, अच्छाई में नज़र आता है. तो आज मैं कहूँगा कि देश ने अपना एक रत्न खो दिया है और उनका नाम था रतन टाटा. किसी इंसान को अगर अपना आदर्श बनाना है तो उसमें रतन टाटा सबसे ऊपर नंबर पर आएंगे. चाहे वो चैरिटी के नाम पर हो, चाहे वो गिविंग के नाम पर हो, चाहे वो प्रिंसिपल्स के नाम पे हो, चाहे वो अनुभवों के नाम पर हो, और किस तरह से क्वाइटली काम अच्छा करना चाहिए. इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट तो नज़र ही नहीं आते थे. वो टाटा का इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट होना ज़्यादा ध्यान में नहीं आता था, पर टाटा का गिवर, एक चैरिटेबल नेचर, वो हमेशा ध्यान में रहता था.
And with that, we've completely run out of time here on this podcast. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishnakumar signing off.